I'm Vana from TBR Trio, and in this episode of Tales in Focus, we are at Charm City Books in Baltimore, Maryland. Today, we're sitting down with Jeffrey Gardner, a fantasy author who tells stories about magic, adventure, and the choices that shape us. Before we dive in, please note that the books we'll be talking about contain mature and potentially triggering themes. We encourage our viewers to always read the content warnings in the books before reading and or listening. Lastly, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming author and bookish events. It really does help a lot. Now, please join me in welcoming Jeffrey. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. This is great.
How are you feeling?
I'm good.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into talking about you and your writer's journey and your books, I have a couple icebreaker questions for you.
Sure.
If you could have any magical ability or superpower in real life, what would it be and how would you use it?
Yeah, that's something that actually I debate a lot with my wife at the dinner table. And so we have very different ideas of what we'd want our superpowers to be. Mine would be I would want to be able to control time. Slow it, speed it up, stop it, reverse it. And so you could do sorts of cool things with that. Yeah, you have, I want to go back and see dinosaurs, or I want to go into the future and see what the future holds for me and my family. But right now, at the stage that I'm at in my life, I've got a young family, I've got little kids. I want to slow down time and be able to really appreciate those kind of special moments you have that go by way too quickly. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'd want to be able to control time.
Yeah, and especially if you have little kids, like you want to take in every second. You don't want to miss a thing. I love that. Well, I know you're a fan of Star Trek.
Yes.
Who is your favorite character and why?
So this is going to be a popular opinion, but my favorite character is Captain Jean-Luc Picard. From Star Trek: The Next Generation. He is the cerebral captain of all the captains that have been shown. He always makes decisions that try to maximize the benefit for everyone around him, and he behaves in a manner that commands the respect of his crew. The people around him want to follow him, and I think that's really admirable traits. So that's why he's my favorite.
Well, you said it's a common answer for him to be people's favorite. So who would you say is your second favorite?
I like Geordi LaForge as well. Also I grew up watching all of the Star Trek Next Generation. That's my insertion point for Star Trek. So really like all of the Next Generation crew, but I think Geordi LaForge next as the engineer, because he's always trying to work to prove himself and be a valuable member of the team. He's always got lots of insight. He's a very good supporting character, and I think that idea of being a strong supporting character is something neat as well. And in my own writing, trying to create characters that you want to know more about. You have the protagonists that are kind of fully developed characters, and you follow their journey. But the side characters, the supporting cast, you want to know more about them as well. What are their wants and desires and traits, and how did they get there? Mm-hmm. And so I think the idea of a strong supporting cast, that's why I gravitate towards him. That's
awesome. And when the side characters, because everyone loves the main characters, right? But when there's like a side character that you really like, you want more of them. That's how you know like the side characters were written very well.
Right.
Awesome. Okay, last question. If you could take a vacation in any fictional universe, which one would you pick and what would you do there?
Sure. So for this one, this is going to be an author that's I think should be more well known than he should be. The author's name is Ian Banks, and he wrote a series of sci-fi novels called the Culture Novels. And it's about a anarchist utopian society that's run by massive and super sentient AI starships. And it's a post-scarcity world, and there is absolute and total freedom for their citizens. So there's nothing you can or can't do, and everything is possible. And so just that kind of mind-blowing level of freedom, I think it'd be a cool place to go and vacation for a little while.
That sounds really awesome. Well, if only we could travel. All right, awesome. Let's talk a little bit about you. Tell us about yourself. How did you know you wanted to become an author? What got you into writing? All of it.
Sure. So I knew I wanted to be an author as soon as I could read stories about magic, wizards, and dragons. And those ideas I always thought were really kind of mind-blowing. Like the imagination or the things you could do. I always find myself reading stories and thinking, what if? And so that drives a lot of kind of my creative process, is taking something that I like and then twisting it a little bit and saying, what if? And so that I had that impetus very early on. And I got my first rejection letter when I was 11. I wrote a little poem for a magazine called Highlights for Children, which is actually still around, and got a very nice form rejection letter, which I still have, and then kept collecting rejection slips all the way through middle school and high school and the first part of college. And then these were all for short stories, and then stopped for writing creatively for about 20 years, because in that 20-year block, that's when career kicked in. Got my PhD, got my scientist position, was training scientists themselves, doing all career stuff. And then two things changed. One is I got a big promotion for my job, and my daughter was born. So those are two major life events, and it made me kind of really take stock about what's really important to me, what are the things that I really wanted to do. And I found that during infant feedings and changings, it's a cycle. So for anybody that has kids, they know it's, you feed the baby, change the baby, your birth baby goes to sleep, and then you just do that for forever. And during that downtime, we had gone through all of the books that we had gotten as gifts. We had gone through all the books we'd bought ourselves. So I started making up stuff. And then I realized, well, some of these elements are from old short stories that I had written and gotten rejected. Let me go see what else I had. So I have a leather-bound journal, pulled some stuff out, and I said, oh, this was a neat idea. What if? Wrote down another couple lines. And that idea of what if kept repeating itself. So during the cycles of baby naps and feedings, wrote a couple more sentences. That turned into paragraphs and turned into ultimately chapters. And I was able to string together those enough and refine them that it eventually turned into The Path from Regret.
That's amazing. So I have a follow-up question. The rejection letters, do you still have them?
Every single one.
And do you like use them as like motivation, or?
I keep all of my rejection letters because they're mementos of a writer's journey. A lot of times you might hear people say that, who have tattoos, they say they're a mark of who I was at that time. And same thing for my rejection letters. They remind me of who I was at that time, what I cared about, the elements that I thought were interesting. And sure, they can help spur me on to keep going, but you talk about the motivator. What's the motivator? The motivator was when I was in high school, and I got a particularly terse rejection letter from a magazine that I really respected. And I showed it to my mom, and she looked at it, she read the letter, and then she handed it back to me and said, so now what? Are you going to quit? And that for me was really powerful. It was a challenge. It was a dare. And I took that as, no, I'm not doing that. That's, I'm gonna figure it out a way. And it took a circuitous route. It took almost 30 years. But now I've got 2 published books, a third one coming along. And that's what really is driving me forward.
That's amazing. And I love that you have like that what if mentality. It's like, okay, well, how can I challenge it? How can I challenge myself? Yeah. And that's amazing. Oh my gosh. I feel like that's a very unique way to think about it. And look at how successful you've become. You have 2 published books, and it's really pushed you. That's amazing. So speaking of your books, you got picked up by a small publishing company called Apprentice House Press.
Yes.
How did that process work? Can you tell us like how they found you and all that?
No, this is good. I have a real affinity for Apprentice House Press because of my day job as an academic and what Apprentice House is. So just a little blurb about Apprentice House. It is the country's only student-run, royalty-paying traditional small publisher. So what does that mean? It means that all of the editors and cover designers and book production people are undergraduate students at Loyola University here in Baltimore, part of the communications department. And so what happens is that they have a submission window, and manuscripts of all genres can be submitted. They're evaluated by students as part of a class. The success rate is about 10%, so it's fairly competitive. Those manuscripts are then edited by students under the guidance of professionals, and then working with the authors, they work on cover design and developmental editing, copy editing, and then at the end of I believe it's a 4-semester sequence, these books are published through Apprentice House. And then after that, as book sales go through, the royalties come in. So I've actually gone through a couple of royalty cycles with these guys. And I really like it because I feel like I am a new and growing writer. Mm-hmm. All of these students are working to build their skills to become book publication professionals. And I think the coolest thing about Apprentice House is that a lot of times if you're in communications or you're doing book production stuff, you say, okay, here's my portfolio. Here's a project I did for a class. The students at Apprentice House, the editors that worked on my book, the cover editors and the developmental editors, they can go, this is my product. I made this. And I think that's really compelling for people that are trying to get jobs with a Big Five publisher.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And I love that you're using like you said, like the publishing company is students that want to build their skills and grow like their skill set. And the fact that you're an up and coming writer as well, you guys are kind of helping each other to grow and become successful. That's amazing. I love that. So what did they say when you presented them your book and you're like, hey, this is a fantasy book. Will you publish it? Like, how was that?
So I'm not sure how the sausage got made in terms of the selection process, but I know that Apprentice House really has specialties in memoirs and literary fiction. Every once in a while they have some speculative fiction. So I'm a little bit of an outlier there, but the mandate of Apprentice House is they want quality fiction that is well written and people that want to work with students as part of the educational process. So if you want to go in and you want to have a well-seasoned editor and a super ornate cover design and you want to have a huge promotion budget, Apprentice House is not going to be a good fit for you. But if you want to go in and be part of the learning process, then that's a better venue.
Yeah. I think being part of the learning process is very beneficial for both sides, right? And you're helping somebody's helping you. Yep. I just love that. It's like a little community that you have. That's
absolutely
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I love that.
No, I've been extremely happy with Apprentice House from top to bottom.
That's awesome. That's great. Are they? I know we're going to talk about this a little later, but your next book, are they also going to be publishing it as well?
I hope so.
Oh, okay.
So the reason that I'm knocking on wood is that every one of my contracts are single book contracts with an option clause. So The Path from Regret was published first. Option clause was able to hit for Magic of Deceit. And so my third book is going to be the option for that as well. So I'm hoping to keep the chain going.
Okay. Well, we are manifesting it for you as well. We are hoping for the best. Do you have any like writing traditions, like listening to music or anything like that?
I do. In terms of people think about, what's their writing space? My space is really fluid. It's a laptop with Word and a calendar, and I can sit on my couch or on my bed or on my porch. The space is not as important as the music. And so I always listen to music when I am writing. And I liken it to the pump up music you listen to at the gym. It gets your energy up, it gets you moving, it gets you focused. And so the music that I listen to is always instrumental. So there's never any words because I think that would mess up what I'm trying to type on the page. So, and the genre kind of changes as well. A lot of times I'm listening to what's popular now is like lo-fi hip hop beats, like the Chilled Cow or the Lo-Fi Girl on YouTube. Listen to a lot of instrumental metal music that I find on Bandcamp. So just kind of like rock guitar. Every once in a while I'll think to classical music. Big fan of Vivaldi's Four Seasons. All of those things just kind of help me focus on the words and keep the energy level high. And so that's invariant. Whenever I am writing and you know that I'm serious about the writing, I'll have the headphones in.
Do you so you listen to music while you're writing, but do you ever like when you're not writing, you hear something and you're like, I can write to this?
To music, no. It's my inspiration in terms of like, where do my ideas come from? That's always the question, right? My ideas always come from watching a TV show or watching a movie or reading a book or seeing a piece of art and then going back to what I was saying before, what if? And so the idea is I like this bit of dialogue, but I would change it in this manner or have the emphasis be on this facet. Or if I see a bit of action in a movie or a bit of magic, I say, that's cool, but I want it to look this way. And so a lot of it is taking something that's already there and then changing it so it's got my personal spin or viewpoint or things that I think are exciting or interesting. That's where things come from. And so I have these moments of, okay, this is an interesting dialogue. This is an interesting bit of action. Then I ask, okay, who's doing that? Who is doing the action? Who's doing the speaking? And then I think, okay, why are they doing it? And then if I can string together that thing of cool thing, who's saying it or doing it, why are they saying it and doing it? And then that's a kernel for a scene. And if I can string those together, then I get a story.
That's awesome. I love this what if mentality that you have. I feel like we should we should all have like that what if mentality to not only better ourselves, but just challenge ourselves. Now I need to ask you, because you're saying like you need like the who, the why, the when. Is that from your scientific background?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, so so I have a PhD in microbiology. I'm trained as a scientist. I think very much like a scientist. I am pretty good at technical writing, so grants, research papers, things like that. Creative writing is a completely different animal, very, very different. So that the connection between the two is getting at those things, basically trying to not standardize, but have common organizational elements: the who, the what, the when, the why. And the why is always the big one for me. And I have that structure that helps move things along, and it helps me find where things break. Because when I give my work for feedback, people will say, well, you missed this. And I say, oh, I can fix that going back to my structure if I add in this element. So having a high level of organization is really important. And so that might be something you ask about: am I a plotter or a pantser? Hopefully by this point, like I'm absolutely an outliner and I'm a plotter. I need to know what's happening. I can't just figure it out on the fly. That's very, very tough for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then that goes to my next question, which I probably will already know the answer, is you love the editing process, or like the drafting, editing, or release day? Are you like the drafter? Like that's all you?
No, actually, that's I would say none of the above. The one that I really love is the outline, the idea generation, the what if, right? The idea is, what I love the most is getting that kernel of idea and then say, what can I build off of? And how can I string that together? So getting that outline, when I kind of have the skeleton of the story in my head, that's what charges me up the most. For me, drafting is the hardest, because now I have to get into the minutia of the sentence by sentence. Like, okay, now they're going from point A to point B. How are they going to do it? What's the weather? What are they eating? Filling in all of the world details. Yeah. That to me is actually quite challenging. So, but I know they're going from here to here because I need to do this thing. And it's going to be awesome. That's the part that I get excited about. And that's the most fun for me. And then the editing is actually the most fun as well, because you've got your shape. Like, the potter's kind of analogy. You got that lump of clay, got to shape it into a cup. That's the drafting part. That's really hard for me. But once you have the cup and it's kind of wobbly and it doesn't look very good, you're like, well, I can fix it and do it this way, and I'll put a shiny glaze on it and still be okay. That's why I like the outlining, and I like the editing. The drafting is really hard, but it needs to get done.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's like I feel like you see it as like a puzzle, right? It's like, okay, where do all the pieces go? How does it make sense?
Absolutely. And again, that's the scientific training. Like what's the logic? What's the flow?
Yes.
Can I connect the dots? And so that's absolutely right.
That's awesome. I'm like, this is such like a unique way of, because usually like when authors write, most of the authors like we've spoken to don't have scientific backgrounds. So their inspiration and their structure and their way they write is different. So the way that you're explaining it, it's very unique, right? It's very like, okay, so this, like, it's very like literal, like it's like A, B, C, and
right.
Do you write in chronological order?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I started chapter 1 and just bashed my way all the way through to the end.
Okay. So. I figured that. So, okay, I have another question. So are you the person that like writes a chapter and then goes back to edit it, or do you just you do it all the way through and then you go back?
Yeah, okay. I'm the writer that goes chapter 1, line 1, all the way through version 1. Return all the way to version 2. So I do that big cycle. I know lots of people will write just the action first, or just the dialogue, or they write the ending first because they love that, and then backfill. That doesn't work with my brain. I have to be very kind of linear. That works best for me. And so that either way is totally fine. But for me, the A to B to C is what gets the job done.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Has there ever been like a time, because you say like you always are like, hey, like what if this, like how can I do this? Have you ever had a time where you're like, oh shoot, I'm stuck? Have you ever had like a writer's block?
Maybe, but I'm going to say no, because very early on, I learned the importance of BICHOK. Have anyone talked about that? BICHOK.
No.
Okay. So that's an acronym that stands for butt in chair, hands on keyboard. It's a writing acronym that people use to remember that the idea of being a writer is you have to write. You can't wait for the muse. You need to get the words on the page. And you need to make the time and get the work done. And for me, with my schedule, with my scientist life, and then my dad life, at the end of every day, I'm lucky if I get an hour, maybe 2, to do writing. And I have to produce. I have to get the words on the page. And waiting for that great song to come on, or waiting for me to get pumped up to write. I don't have that luxury. And so if I only have an hour, I have to get the words down. And so that idea of focusing in my chair with my keyboard and producing something is really important. And that's how I've been able to trim my writing speed down. It took, I want to say, over 2 years to write The Path from Regret. The Magic from Deceit took me 20 months. This third book that I have now with my editor took me 10 months. So as I refine that chalk mentality, I'm able to get the stories out in a more effective manner.
Well, you know what they say, if you can't edit what's not written, right? That's something I've heard. We've heard a lot that the authors say, like, you can't edit if there's nothing on the paper, right? So that is a very good mentality to have. Well, talk to us, like, what does your day look like? Because you have your job, your full-time job, and then you're also a dad, you're also a husband, and you're also an author. So how does your day
work?
Yeah.
So the day is going to be like any busy career parent. So you wake up and then you manage the little ones to make sure that they're fed, they're dressed, they're ready for school or daycare, and then you transport them to said location. Then you go and do your day job. Again, I'm a scientist. I lead a small research team looking at ways to treat fungal infections. And so, I'm a scientist for 8 hours. Then you come home and you pick up children, and then you need to feed and bathe and story and, put them to sleep. And then you have to do the parent jobs that the kids never see, right? So now I'm doing laundry and doing dishes and cleaning the house and paying the bills and making sure all that stuff happens. And then you need to try to find some time to spend with your spouse so you actually keep that connection. And then once you get all of that done, like I was saying before, I get maybe an hour, maybe 2 if I'm really lucky on nights. And that's when I need to get the words out. And I know now that I've gone through the rodeo 2 or 3 times that in an hour or 2, I can get about 500 words per night. And so that's my goal. And so I've got a Word calendar, a Word document for all the stories. So I don't use Scrivener or anything fancy like that. But then on my calendar, I type in how many words per day I get. And so, the good days are 500, the great days are 1,000. But I make sure I track whatever I get. So there's some days where it's just 100 words, and that's okay. So then I get those words done and then go to sleep, and then the cycle repeats.
Well, any progress is better than no progress, right?
Right. And then that's actually something that I say to myself fairly often, almost exactly like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. I'm the voice in your head. Okay. Awesome. Well, let's jump into your book. So first off, what inspired you to write fantasy specifically?
So why do I love fantasy? I love fantasy and science fiction because it is the biggest canvas to paint your story. So when you think about genres in fiction, you can have, thrillers and mysteries and romance, espionage. Fantasy and science fiction can encompass all of those. And you can also have spaceships or dragons and magic. So you can have all the regular genres. Romantasy is very popular right now. So that's, cramming dragons and kissing together, right? So that's cool. And that anything that's sci-fi, there's going to be some type of, evil empire or espionage or thriller elements, and that's cool too. You can have these character moments where character falls in love or dies or something bad happens, and you feel that just as much as any contemporary character. But you can have the cool stuff in it. So it's like, I don't know any little boy or big boy for that matter that doesn't think lightsabers aren't cool. So or wants to do cool magic. So that idea of you can have all of these genre conventions, but then you can have the fantastic. Your only limit is your imagination. So that's why I'm real passionate about science fiction and fantasy. I think it's just, you can do so much cool stuff with it.
Yeah. And like you said, it's like the possibilities are endless because it's fantasy, right? You can have like a 3-legged like tree or something like that comes to life or something like that. But yeah, that's awesome. And I love that it gives you, and because you have the what if, right? So you have that mentality. So for fantasy, you're like, okay, what if this happens? But then this also happens. And then they come back around and then this whole thing happens. So it fits your mentality very well.
Absolutely does, yes.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about your books. So The Path from Regret and The Magic of Deceit. What inspired the titles and how did you get that amazing cover design?
Sure. So the titles all stem from a theme, not necessarily the main theme, but a theme you find in the book. And so in the case of The Magic of Deceit, the main story is about two wizards trying to protect their guild. And they have very different ways of how they think that should take place. And so there's lots of secret agendas, lots of hidden meanings behind things they say and do. So the idea there is the magic of deceit. Well, magic is the two wizards part. The deceit part is the hidden agendas or the things they're hiding from others. In the case of The Path from Regret, the story is again, it's got a wizard as a main character, but now it's an older wizard and he's struggling with his place in the world and grappling with the things he's said, things he's done, and how he can reconcile some of the nasty things that have happened to him and he's done unto others throughout his life. And so he's walking this path, recollecting on the things he's said and done, and trying to rationalize some of them and make peace with others. So that's where the titles come from. They're always about a theme. And so in the case of The Path from Regret, the themes, as you kind of would guess, is memory, time, regret. Those are the big themes. In the case of The Magic of Deceit, the big themes are ambition and the means to having a strong will to fulfill those ambitions.
That's awesome.
In terms of the cover design, I wanted, and again, I'm working with the undergraduate cover designers at Apprentice House, and I am really happy with their mentality because they came in and said, here's some ideas, here's some elements we think based on the manuscript. What do you want? And that's the part that blew me away, because I know that for folks in other instances that are working with traditional publishers, they farm that out and you get the cover back and you have zero control. What I feel really lucky about is I got to say, well, I want a really stripped down minimalistic cover. I don't want the barest number of elements. And they said, well, how many elements do you want? I said 3. And they said, okay, we can work with that. So each book, the cover only has 3 elements. Each book has the alchemy symbols as the background. So that's a common element that every cover is going to have. They're all going to have alchemy symbols in the background because magic and alchemy are pervasive elements throughout the story. Then there's going to be a cutout image of something that's going to be important, a prop that's important for the story. So the hourglass and the dagger are important plot elements in the story. And then finally, the fill-in image has to do with the 4 classical elements of magic or alchemy. So fire, one of the classical elements, and then here space is representing air. So for the other 2 books in the series, there's going to be an earth and then a water type scenario. So I'll have all 4 classical elements represented as the fill-ins for the images.
So you have confirmed that there's 4 books in this series.
Yes, okay.
It's been confirmed, 4 books. All right, awesome. That's so interesting. I love that the cover itself has a whole story behind it. Yeah. That's amazing. So walk us through are they standalones? Can they be read in any order? Do they have to be read in order? Yes, tell us about that.
So the reason that I'm laughing is because this is the really convoluted story, so you'll have to bear with me. So I had the outline for all 4 books. I knew, at least for one of the wizards, where he was going to start, where he was going to end his journey. The second wizard, and I'm not going to say who's the hero or villain because I would argue they're both hero and villain, so antagonist, protagonist. The second wizard, I knew where she was going to start, but I had an idea of where I thought she was going to end, but it turns out, nope, she ends up somewhere different. So I've got that figured out, but as I was writing the outlines, some outlines were more fleshed out than others. And so what turned out to be book 3, I had that outline totally figured out first. And that was the story of my heart. And despite advice that I should have followed, they said, don't write the 3rd book first. I said, no, I'm going to write them all as all 4 are going to be standalones. So you can jump in at any point that you want. I said, how can you make that work? I said, I don't know. I'll figure it out. So
that's my favorite.
I'll figure it out. TBR Trio is I'll figure it out.
And I said, I'll figure it out. So I'm going to make these all be overarching stories that have kind of a timeline, but they're going to be 4 independent stories. You can jump in wherever you want. I'm writing book 3 first because that's the one I'm most excited about right now. So that's what The Path from Regret is. And so I wrote that, published it, and the reviews are saying, yeah, this is good, but, and there's always the but in the reviews saying this is pretty good, but it feels like something should have come before. That's true. Something should have come before, books 1 and 2. And so then I said, all right, I guess let's get pounded down into following convention. Now I'm going to go back and backfill. So The Magic of Deceit actually is book 1.
Okay.
And so right now I've got book 1 and book 3. They can be read as standalone. You can just read one and be like, all right, that's fine. If you want to know more about what happened before or after, that's where you can get the other ones. But there's 4 books total. Okay. 2 of them are out. One of them is with my editor now. So that the dream is that will be out in late 2026, early 2027. The 4th one, again, these are all options pending, will be 2029 or 2030. So the idea is that I personally don't like really long series. I get to burn out after reading book 4 or 5. So I wanted this to be short. Mm-hmm. And so I know that there's a lot of debate in the community about long series, short series, waiting for books that never come, authors that don't, produce on a regular interval. I wanted something where I can say, yes, for certain, there will be 4, and it's going to be done and complete, and there is a timeline. That was kind of roundabout. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. No. So as somebody reading your book for the first time,
yes,
you would suggest, would they start at the Magic of Deceit?
Yes, okay. I would. So if you want to have the conventional fantasy series reading experience, please start with the Magic of Deceit, because that is absolutely the ground floor. If you want to read them in chronological order, you'd be going Path from Regret to Magic of Deceit. And that's fine, because some questions you might have reading the Path from Regret would be answered in the Magic of Deceit. But if you don't want to be scratching your head saying, well, why is he doing it this way? I would start with book 1 with finger quotes around it.
Okay. And you said you're working on book 2 currently.
Book 2, yes.
So would there be like significant information, like from going from the Magic of Deceit to the Path of Regret? Would there be like a gap, for example, for the reader, or?
No, because the reason I say no, and the reason I say each one could be a standalone is that it's not a sequential timeline. Okay. Each book is a significant event in a decade of one of the wizard's life. So the Magic of Deceit is a significant event in one of the wizard's life when he's 20. Okay. Same thing with the book, to be named, that's at the editor now. That is a significant event when he's 30. This is when he's 40. And then the last one is when he's 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So the title of the book is not announced yet, right?
Not yet.
We can't know.
It's still in flux.
All right. Sorry, guys, I tried. So you were saying how like you had like the characters plot like mapped out. Do you develop like the world building first, or did you have the character in like profile in your head first, or both?
I'm going to say it's kind of similar to what I was saying before. I have an idea of what I think interesting action is, or interesting conversation or dialogue. And so for me, the dialogue and the action are always at the forefront, are always the things that I think of first and last. And so those are the things that I get the ideas from. That's where the spark comes from. And then I say, well, who's saying it? And then can I attribute what this conversation or this magic is to one of the major characters or one of the supporting characters? And then I build up, why are they doing that? So I would say in that case, I guess based on your question, it's more kind of the characters themselves. And so why are they saying or doing a particular thing? And then can that action or can that dialogue be woven into an overall narrative or an overall plot?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, how, without giving too many spoilers, or you can give spoilers and we'll put a spoiler warning, how did you come up with their story? How did you come up with the story, essentially? What inspired you?
Maybe we'll talk about this in a little bit, but the spark there is the magic system and how wizards are perceived in the world, and how their abilities influence their outlook on life. So that's really at the core for all of these. All of these stories are wizard characters are the main characters. The place where they do the magic or the alchemy, it's called the archive in both of these books. So you could think of the archive as a combination of an apothecary's workbench, a polymer company like 3M, and the engineering department of like MIT. You take all those together, put them in a blender, and that's the archive. So it's not a school, and I've tried very hard to emphasize it's not a school setting. It is a research environment. And the wizards they're of kind of 2 types. There are those that are born into magic, that innately have it, and those that are made wizards. They choose to become wizards, and so no one is a chosen one. There's no chosen wizard. You're not special if you can use magic. Anyone can do it, but very, very few do, because magic is not awesome. Magic is a chronic, debilitating, and ultimately fatal disease.
Oh.
And whether you're born or made, you will suffer a disease called the Iron Bane. And that Iron Bane disease manifests as the destruction of your five senses. So hearing, sight, smell, touch, all that stuff. It will start to degrade and lessen, and then ultimately it will kill you. So these born mages, they know that that's going to happen to them from day one. The made mages, why become one? Why do that? You know it's going to happen. So what would drive someone to become one of these made mages? And what does that say about you as a person? And how do you interact with someone that was born that way? So there's some conflict even within the archive, because the born mages, some of them, not all, but some have some resentment against the made mages because they had the option to be healthy and normal, and they didn't. So there's that kind of conflict within the archive itself. And then there's the larger conflicts of where does the archive fit in the world? And the archive fits in the world on a tripod of power. So there's the archive, which is the magic and the alchemy innovation. There's the merchant guilds, which is the commerce and the communication. So they're very powerful economically. And then there's the ruling princes. So the continents where the stories take place, there's 5 provinces, and each one is ruled by a prince that controls the military. So that's the tripod. And you can think of it as paper, rock, scissors. Each one is weak to one of the other members and strong against the other. So they're all kind of kept in check. So the tripod's fairly stable, but as you can imagine, in any tripod of power, one wants to get the upper hand. Mm-hmm. So then what are the plots and the schemes amongst each leg of the tripod, and how does that kind of disrupt things?
Wow, that sounds very interesting.
Did that answer your question? I feel like I kind of got lost in the weeds.
You gave us more than my question, and I really appreciate that. That is a very interesting way that you built the world. So I have a follow-up question to that. So the made and the born, you said it was a disease that eventually kills them. Is it like the more magic they use and it kills them?
No, that's the scary part. And so I've made it that it is a random and erratic effect. So I liken it to every one of these wizards is a ticking time bomb. You don't know what you're going to lose, when you're going to lose it, how much time you've got, and the amount you use your magic does not influence it. You could absolutely abstain. And in fact, there's plot points in the story where, now we're getting really into the weeds because I love talking about the magic stuff. You can get a seal put on your body. So basically you are cut off from your magic. So you can't perform the magic, but the magical energy is still pervading your body. That will give you a couple more ticks on the clock, but you're still a ticking time bomb, and you'll still suffer the effects. You'll still get sick. You'll still die because of it.
Oh my gosh, this sounds I'm like so intrigued because it's just so different. Like I've never heard of a story like this.
Well, the idea of magic being a disease, that you see that in it's very common, like in video games, or you see it in some novels as well. So it's an element where it's like normally drink the healing potion and you can do the thing again. But the idea here that I wanted to keep it is it's permanent and pervasive. So if you start to encase I will call her the antagonist of these stories, her vision is deteriorating. It can't be healed, it can't be repaired. You just got to work with what you got. And that idea of this gradual permanent degradation, knowing that it's never going to get better, how does that affect you as a person? And again, how does that affect other people around you?
I am I'm so intrigued. I'm so amazed. So the made mages, yeah. I know, I don't want you to go and tell us the spoilers for our viewers, but I do want to know, can you tell us what, like you said, what makes them want to become?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to.
I'm just intrigued. What makes them want to become if they know the consequence?
That's a perfect question, because the ostensibly protagonist of these stories is a made mage. He is one of these ones that chose to do this to himself. And through the Magic of Deceit and The Path from Regret. And then as a little aside, I got a short story published in an anthology, which is also out. All three of those things weave into that. Why did he choose to do it? What happened to him throughout his life that made him decide, I'm healthy young man now. Nope, throw that away. I'm going to be a wizard now. Why did he do this to himself? And so that's explored in here. And what are the choices and what are the consequences of that? So that's something that is grappled with a lot in the stories. Why would someone choose to do that? What type of person would want to do that? And the idea is he is fully aware, and it is well known that this happened. So he's not going in blind.
Ooh, so mysterious. I'm very intrigued. So as you were explaining it, I can see that there's a lot of complexities in this world, right? There's a lot of connections and a lot of things that go into it. Were there any like challenging parts that you were like, I don't know how this is going to work? Or how did you navigate that?
Yeah, I had some challenging parts, but it's going to be super mundane. My challenges is with time and space. And what I mean by that is I'm terrible gauging distances and time. So how long does it take someone to walk from place to place? What time are they going to be eating or drinking or sleeping? And it's because in the world, it is a planet that has a perfect equinox, 30 hours. So it's 15 hours day, 15 hours night. And also it is a planet that doesn't, it's perfectly vertical on its elliptical plane. So there's no seasons. So there's no seasons and it's a 30-hour day. So that messes up the clock. How long does it take someone to, if you're going to do a day's travel, what does that mean? And if I start one scene and it's breakfast time and they're doing some stuff, and then I start another scene or a new chapter, but it's the same day, what time is it? So I really struggle with just mundane things like characters in time and place and what they're doing and when they can do it.
Yeah.
That could be world building for anything, even a conventional, a spy thriller that's right now that's set in our world. I would still struggle writing that because I have a really hard time judging distances and how long it's going to take to do something.
So to build like the story of the archives and all that, you were like, I got this, I could do it. Yes. But then you're like, literally, what time is it? I have no idea.
That's exactly right. I could sit here and bore you to death with the intricacies of the archive and the magic, but then you say, well, how far is it between these two towns? I don't know.
You're like, I don't know. Yeah. It's up to interpretation. Yeah. It's fine. It doesn't matter. The story is more important. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's awesome. So these books are published. You're writing book 2/3, right? The third book in the series.
Right.
What has surprised you about like writing book 1, 3 from the first book to the third book you've written? Yes, exactly.
No, that's great. And what surprised me the most, or the thing that I've come to appreciate the most, is the power of the antagonist. And so this is something that experienced writers already really know. So this is going to be old hat for them. But for me, writing through here, really drilling down to the antagonist. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? What do they really want? Are they behaving in a way that makes sense? Mm-hmm. And so that's why I said the antagonist story, I thought her arc was going to be like this, and like, nope, now it's like this. Because as I was writing, I really figured out who she was, what she wanted, and most importantly, why did she want it? So that's what surprised me the most, is really coming to the realization that if I want to write a story, if I ever do this again, write another series, I'm not starting with the world or the magic or the protagonist. I'm starting with the bad guy. Okay. Because your story, in my opinion, is only as good as the obstacles or challenges they overcome. So that means the antagonist has to be absolutely rock solid, because everything is built around that.
Yeah, that's a good lesson to learn. It is true. Like without the antagonist, without the problem, the story is just kind of flowing. You know, like you want something to challenge and to say, hey, no, I'm still here. I'm going to give you all these problems and you're going to deal with it. So back to the world building. Like we were saying, it's a lot of complexity and a lot of things that go into it. It's very immersive. So how do you make sure like the pacing isn't like too slow? Because I know like some books are like very, info dumping. And it's like, okay, this is a lot of information. So how do you pace it in your books?
This is something I think a lot about, and I try to sprinkle world building in during conversations and action, and I don't have paragraph long descriptions. I personally dislike reading fantasy where there's a paragraph about the meal or the clothes or the landscape. Let's get past those. I want to know what people are saying. What are they doing? And so for my own stories, there's a little bit of description, but it's mostly baked into their saying or doing. So for example, if you're going to have people are at a meal, you might get the info dump of, okay, well, here's the place setting, here's the food, here's the flavoring, here's the regions from where all the ingredients came from, which is supposed to flavor the text. Fine. But that's kind of tedious for me to read. What I want is people are, so for example, take that same thing, people are eating the food, but then they dump some salt in because it's bland, or they blow it because it's too hot, or they say, oh, I don't like peas. So you know what's in it, but it's part of action or part of conversation. Mm-hmm. So you get a sense of details while something else is going on. And so it's more passive in terms of that. So that's what I prefer to do.
That's awesome. And I know, like, personally, like for me, I like when the world is explained through dialogue instead of giving me like you were saying, like landscape, just like a page. And I'm like, okay, that's what it looks like. Great. But keep it going.
Absolutely.
You know?
And what I also try to do is get rid of the, well, Bob, because that's the info dumping through dialogue where it's like two people are talking. It's like, well, Bob, the king just died and his kingdom is in disarray. So we really got to do something. That's still the info dumping, but it's in a dialogue. So I try to stay away from that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it makes like you understand like the flow better. And it's, like you said, it keeps the pace going. It keeps the story moving. And that's what makes a good story, essentially. Do you have any Easter eggs in your books that we can know about?
Absolutely. No, I love talking about this too. So I've got Easter eggs in here, but they're not in terms of things to find across books. They have to do with names and the meanings of names. So for one, I'll absolutely give away because I love this one. So there's two characters that you'll see in both of these books, and you'll see they'll see them in book 2 as well. Their names are Torstein and Skivald. These are Norwegian names. And they're significant because they're names of real historical Norwegian warriors. And what they did is, during the Norwegian Civil War of 1206, they carried an infant prince, heir to the country. They cross-country skied a huge distance across Norway to protect him. And so there's actually a cross-country ski race that's in Norway and here in the US called the Birkebeiner, which is Norwegian for birch leggings. And these Norwegian warriors didn't have armor. They had birch bark wrapped around their legs to protect them. And so this Torstein and Skivald, these were the two Norwegian warriors that protected the prince. And so those names I've put into characters here. And I've also used a lot of names that have to do with botany, flowers, and plants.
That's awesome. That's very interesting. I love that you bring like that Norwegian aspect into it. Very unique. I really like that. So let's talk a little bit about book 3, right? Because we want to know what's coming up. So the book is finished.
Yes.
And it's in editing.
Yes.
Is there anything you can tell us about that book? Like what it's going to be about? I know you said it's going to be when he's in his 30s.
30s.
Yep.
So I'll say a couple of things about it that I think we can share. Number one, you're going to see the protagonist at the height of his power. What does he do with it? That's one thing that I would say. You'll see that the antagonist comes across her first major challenge. How does she handle it? And then the last thing I'll say is don't grow attached to too many of the characters.
Ooh. What do you mean? I get attached to characters. You can't tell me that. I get very emotionally attached to these characters. Don't scare me, Jeffrey. Come on now. Okay. Well, that's good. That's exciting. I can't wait for that. And you said do you have a date yet or not yet?
So the submission deadline for my option is between October and February for Apprentice House. So I would know if we're good to go by March or April of 2026.
All right. Well, March or April 2026, we'll give you guys an update on that once we hear an update on that. So this is more so just a question for our audiobook readers. Do you have any thoughts or plans or anything about making your books into audiobooks?
I would love to, but again, what's with the Prentice House, that's kind of in their auspices. I know that's something they're exploring, but again, being a student-run press at a university, they're really focusing on print. I know they've discussed the options of audio, but I'm not quite sure they're ready to execute on that. So I'm going to say it's on the radar, but maybe a little bit further off than you would like.
Okay. Well, as an audiobook listener, I will keep that on my radar for the future, no matter how distant it may be. Do you know, like, when you were plotting the book, did you plot, I'm assuming you plotted all 4?
Yes.
Right off the bat. Yep. So you knew how the book was going to end.
For the protagonist, I knew exactly where he was going to start. I knew exactly where he was going to end. I knew his arc, and that has actually stayed largely invariant. For the antagonist, I knew where she was going to start. I knew what was going to happen, but then, based on what I was saying before, learning as you go, she kind of took a hard mark, and now she's starting in a very different place that I had originally intended, but I actually am a lot more satisfied with her arc now.
Okay. And what about the world building? Was there anything that you knew and then like changed along the way?
Yes, and this has to do with the tripod of power. For the archive, I had that very well figured out, so that hasn't changed. That stayed mostly the same. For the merchant guilds, that was a lot more fluid in terms of their organization, their wants, their desires, the why they're doing stuff, and that's really firmed up over the course of writing. Now I have a much better understanding of what they want, what they're doing, and why they're doing it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I have a full circle question for you because we started off with saying why you wanted to write fantasy. Yes. So how has your vision of fantasy evolved as now that you have the books published?
How has my vision of fantasy evolved? It's really made me appreciate time. And so again, that's kind of the theme for this one. So that's kind of a thing that I think about a lot. The time it takes to write a book, the time it takes to enjoy a book, because a lot of times we see stuff in discussion threads and talking with local authors. Okay, it took me, this is my baby. It took me a year, 2 years, 3 years to get it out. And people that are readers or super readers, they'll bang through 100,000 words, which both of these guys are, in a day and a half. So it's very, very fast. And so the amount of enjoyment you get from being a reader versus being a writer, there's a bit of a disconnect. So I'm trying to appreciate books more as I read them, and not just tear through them just to say that, yep, the TBR is getting smaller and the stuff that I've read has gotten bigger, but try to find the real nuggets where I think that's a really neat idea. I want to hang on to that. And so I think writing fantasy has made me appreciate the fantasy that I've enjoyed reading and finding the new gem.
That's awesome. I love that. So as you were saying, like, that's what you learn about yourself as a writer. What is one word you would use to describe your author journey, like, overall?
Oh, gratifying. This has been it's been a rad ride. It's been super fun. I've been writing these books for me. I'm writing the books that I've always wanted to read. So it's got all the elements that I think are awesome. And I guess I'm arrogant enough that I think other people want to read them too, which is the publishing part. But I've had a blast writing these, and that idea of here's the outline, and this is a cool bit of magic. I want to make that happen because I'm the boss. Yeah. So you write that in, and then you come back later and you read that, and you're just like, ha, I'm clever. So it's been a joy. It's been a fun ride.
It's like just a follow-up question. This is more so like a hobby for you to write the books.
Yes, absolutely.
Will you ever, maybe in the foreseeable future, make it a full-time career?
Probably not. To be perfectly honest, I am a full-time scientist, and I actually really like being a full-time scientist. Okay. I like my job. I like going in and moving very small amounts of liquid all day long and thinking about problems, and thinking about genetics and biochemistry and that stuff. I like that. And so this is a hobby, and I think that the second this stops being fun, then I'm not sure I'd want to keep doing it. And if it became a job, then it becomes really hard work. And right now, I want to stay on the roller coaster. I want to keep the fun ride going. Yeah. So I would say for the time being, I like the idea of keeping it a hobby that I'm serious about. but not something that my livelihood depends on.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I know, you've worked really hard to get to where you are through school, your PhD. So it's not something that you can just be like, okay, well, I think I'm just going to put this aside. And, so that's very respectful. I respect that. Do you ever think about, like, aside from the series, because you said you might want to write more series in the future, have you thought of incorporating like science into like not like a sci-fi, but more so like writing a book about a scientist or something that's inspired by what you do, like your full-time job?
I haven't, and it's because I love reading sci-fi, and the handful of times I've tried reading sci-fi, it's been super, super hard because I know the minutia, I know the details, and so as I'm writing stuff and I try to make stuff up because it sounds sciencey or science fiction, I'm just like, that's wrong. And I can't get past it. It's really tough. I like fantasy because I can make chemistry and physics do whatever I want. Okay. And it doesn't matter as much. But if I'm trying to do sci-fi, there's the expectation that it has to sort of work in some fashion. And that's a block that I really struggle getting past. So if I'm going to keep writing, it's going to stay in the fantasy.
We're staying
space.
In fantasy. Yeah. That's fair. Listen, like we said, fantasy is endless. Yeah. So you can kind of do whatever you want. The science, the rules don't apply in fantasy, right? So that's important. That's what matters. Awesome. Well, what is something you wish readers maybe knew more about you? Maybe not as a writer, as a person, or is there any like fun fact or anything that you would like to share?
I guess the fun fact actually ties back to Thorstein and Skivald. So I said before that in commemoration, or as part of a commemoration of that civil war and the saving of this prince and these two warriors skiing this incredible distance. It was over 55 kilometers, which is 30 miles. So it's longer than a marathon. And these two ski races, I have done the American variant of this race 8 or 9 times. So I'm very enthusiastic about cross-country skiing and really like the story of the Birkebeiner. And in Maryland, you don't get a lot of snow. So it's tough to do some skiing. So, but recently, I want to say two years ago was the 50th anniversary of the American Birkebeiner ski race. And so I had to go back and go ski, one more time while I'm still fit enough to do a distance like that. So
that's awesome. I love that personal touch to your books. That's awesome. I love that. What takeaway would you want readers to take away? Right? I worded that question very great. What would you want them to take away from your books as like going into it for the first time?
In terms of like taking like what they
like a message
a
or
message?
Yeah.
That's a great question. What message would I want them to take away? First of all, I hope that they are entertained and they enjoyed the ride. In terms of theme, all of these books deal with what I think are a theme for like old people. And in terms of, normally when you think of fantasy, you think of like cool Gandalf characters that are shooting fireballs and flying and doing rad stuff. There's not a lot of that here. It's a lot of wizards grappling with the choices that they made in their past and liking some of them and not liking others. And so I'm writing the books that I want to read now, and being a middle-aged dude, those ideas of where's my place in the world? How did I get here? What do I want to do with the time that I have left? Those are the things I'm thinking about, which is different when, I was 15, 16, 17. Then I want the Gandalf fireball guy. That's the cool stuff. You don't want to be thinking about, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to be the best husband? How am I going to be the best dad? How am I going to be the best mentor at my work? The things that I think about now, that's themes that are woven into here at a very deep level. And so if readers pick up on some of those things and think, where's my place in things, and am I happy with that place? That would be kind of a cool thing if they think more deeply than just the story themselves. Yeah.
I mean, like the stories of Gandalf and the fun fights and all that, those are fun, those are entertaining, but we need books that teach us something and help us feel like we belong somewhere and we have a place and we have a purpose, right? Yep. So we need your books just as much as we need Gandalf and Lord of the Rings and all of that. I love that. Now, I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
If you can give one piece of advice to aspiring authors, what would it be?
My advice is real simple. if you want to write and be a writer, you can do it. So go do it.
I love that. Plain and simple. Go do it. That's right. That's it. That's awesome. No, he straight to the point. Well, that's what we need. We don't need, some people are like always like sugarcoating, and it's like, no, just you want to do it. What's stopping you?
Yeah.
Go do it.
Yep.
You know, that's awesome. Well, Jeffrey, thank you so much. This has been such a fantastic conversation. I am so intrigued about your book, and I hope you guys are also intrigued of his books, because I'm very intrigued. So when is book 3 coming out again? No, but thank you so much for talking to us about your book, your journey, your inspirations. It's been so great learning more about you. For our viewers and our listeners at home, where can we go to support you and find your books?
Sure. The easiest way to find me would be on my website, which is jgardnerauthor.com. You could also find me through Apprentice House Press. Those are going to be the easiest and fastest ways to find me.
Awesome. And do you have any social media or anything like that?
For a number of personal and professional reasons, I don't. So
Okay.
actually doing things like this is really great, because I'm either the best person or the worst person for this stuff, because I don't have any social media.
Okay, well, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, we'll have his website and Apprentice House linked in our description, so you can go find his books. And I think your books are also on Amazon, correct?
They're on Amazon, they're on Barnes & Noble, they're on Walmart, they're on Target, they're on bookshop.org.
You can find them everywhere.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. And for our readers, listeners, and viewers at home, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Tales in Focus. You can find TBR Trio on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at tbr.trio. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It does help us a lot. And we'll see you next time to see what other tales TBR tells. That's a wrap. Good job.
Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed it.
This was fun.
I'm glad.
Amazing.